Tuline Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye olwaleero waliwo ensonga nnyingi ezibadde zoogerwako ezibadde mu mawulire ensangi zino nti ekibiina kye yatandikawo ekya Forum for Democratic Change kyatwalibwa dda Mwami Museveni kati abalimu yabasasula ensimbi. Bino byagiddwayo omubaka Ssemujju Ibrahim Nganda omwegezi w'ekibiina olunaku lwajjo wali ensambya ku Sharing Hall era nga ne Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye mabegakaawo yavaayo n'akyogera nti lwaki takyagenda ku kitebe kya Forum for Democratic Change nti baateekawo baakanyama tebachakkiriza muntu yenna kuyingira nga tebamaze kukebera naye kennyini atyayo kuba ebigenda maaso tabitegeera. Nandala Mafabi ayina entalo ze yateekawo ng'agamba Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye musosoze tayagala bantu b'ebudaadiri eri mu sayidi ez'ebugisu era ng'agamba tayagaliza Forum for Democratic Change n'olwekyo tebakyamwetaaga ku kibiina kino ekya FDC enajja nankumbi ate nga yakitandikawo. Kati nno olwaleero avuddeyo atangaaze ku bigenda maaso mu kibiina kye kye yatandika ekya Forum for Democratic Change. Agamba ekibiina kino kyatwalibwa dda tekikyalimu nsa, ekibiina kyagenda dda kiri mu nsawo za Museveni kati yakikozesa era nti n'abakulembeze ba Forum for Democratic Change omuli President Patrick Oboya Amuriat ne Secretary General Nandala Mafabi Mwami Museveni yabasasula ensimbi empitirivu era nga lwaki abawo ensimbi zino kwe kulaba nti mu opposition tobaawo kwatagana tewabaawo maanyi gateekebwawo kujja ku Mwami Museveni nga tuyita mu byokwekalakaasa oba okumulwanyisa nga bannayuganda banyiiga okumujja mu ntebe wabula nga tuvuga buvuzi Mwami Museveni kumuzza mu kalulu yekyayagala era kyekigendererwa kye ensonga lwaki awayo ekibiina kya Forum for Democratic Change ensimbi n'okulaba nti tebakwatagana na kibiina kya National Unity Platform. Atwayo twagala tumanye Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye Forum for Democratic Change agivuddemu yeegase ku National Unity Platform eya Kyagulanyi People Power oba agenda kutandikawo ekibiina ekijja. Nsaba oteegatteko mu lukuŋŋaana lw'abamawulire luno Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye lwakubye wano ku yafeesize Katonga tulabe ki ekigenda maaso ki ekigenda okuddako era kikyategekedde eggwanga olwo tuddewa tulinde ki. Nsaba tugende Katonga ewa Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye.
After the use of the military, there have been other actions progressively facilitating the capture. One of them, and again started right away in 1986, has been the capture of the economy. Capture of the economy, for the economy to be controlled by the family of Mr. Museveni. And that has had, one can write a book on what has been done to capture the economy. Takeover of state-controlled corporations, or the corporations were taken over, ostensibly in a privatization exercise. The takeover of the financial institutions, the takeover of the cooperatives, and so many other things in capturing the economy and controlling it as a family. That capture of the economy went hand in hand with structural impoverishment of the population. Structural impoverishment of the population, where the population has been progressively disempowered economically through government policies of taxation, of control of land and evictions from land and things like that, control of course, capital and so on and so forth. Thirdly, has been the capture of the means of building knowledge and giving information to people. So denial of information. I was just talking about the capture of the media, but denial of information. That's why we can't all hold meetings with the public. To deny information to the public and to be the sole provider of information and use it to manipulate the people's will by what they know. There has been capture of the politics through commercialization of politics. So first of all, you have an impoverished society and you commercialize, and this has been deliberate, the commercialization of politics, that you can't be elected unless you have tons of money. And that's why even nomination fees for anybody to be nominated has been progressively hiked, so that even just qualify to be a candidate, you need a lot of money. The commercialization of politics, so that all those who come into the political arena can be controlled. This then has included the patronage system, giving favors for the political elite, mainly favors of jobs, favors of money and means of getting money, business and so on, led to the control of the elites by patronage. That's why Mr. Museveni has officially hundreds of millions of shillings for donation of our money, which is he can donate as he wants. Formally, that is the patronage system. This whole creation of factionalization of the country, chopping up to get more districts, more sub-counties, more parishes, more what, so that they can appoint chiefs, can appoint RDCs, can appoint what, to give jobs for patronage. That all has been part of the construct of state capture. Now, the broad part, the other flip side of the broad problem is that political parties have failed to adjust to the reality of the state capture. All our political parties failed to adjust to confront the problem of state capture. If you have a problem and you don't adjust to be able to solve it, it destroys you. It's like, you know, the reason we are black and some people in the world are white, it is because of the problem of the sun. We who live under the sun the whole year round, and a very strong sun that comes direct closest, we are closest to the sun because of where we are on the globe. If we did not develop the black pigment to protect us against the sun rays, we would be destroyed by cancer, by skin cancer. So that's why when Europeans come here, they have to use a sunscreen. They have developed oils that screen, that protect them against the sun. So you have to adopt to defeat the problem. That's why viruses are still rampaging the world, because viruses have the greatest capacity to adapt to the problems they confront. You make a medicine that will destroy them in another way, they must adapt immediately by changing their form to defeat the medicine. And that's why you hear of variants. Viruses produce variants to defeat those who want to to destroy them. Parties have not learned from viruses to adapt themselves to the problem of state capture. Parties have continued to act as if they are democratic institutions functioning in a democratic society, where there are two main roles of political parties would play out, which is, first of all, organizing the political ideas into a coherent political program. That is the first role of political parties, to aggregate ideas of citizens into a coherent political program that can manage a country. And secondly, to develop leaders for elections so that they are chosen to manage, to implement their program. When there is state capture, with all the components that I have been talking about, you are not going to just present yourself like a political party functions in Europe, that you are organizing democratically in a free environment, and you are going to compete in the same politics that I told you are captured by commercialization. So everybody you see in parliament there has paid his way. I hear now the minimum you have to spend to get into parliament is like 500 million at the time of the last election. By the next election, I guess it will be like $1 billion before you are able to join parliament. And the same going downwards. And I have told you, the economy is under the capture of Mr. Museveni. So, where will you get the billions to participate in the politics? Even to be nominated, for a person to be nominated, you need 3 million to be nominated to parliament. We have 500 constituencies. So in order to nominate just candidates, you need 1.5 billion. And you have all your candidates are impoverished by the system. So how do they participate? Eventually, you will have to be co-opted by those who have money, either individually or institutionally. And that's why even now some people are panicking. Say Muhoozi may be the next person coming, meaning that he's the one who will be holding the pass to distribute to those whom they want to bring to the politics. That is the broad problem. State capture and inability to adjust, for parties to adjust to function in that environment without being co-opted. A political party in Uganda cannot hold a fundraising and anybody gives them money. Have you ever had a political party conducting a fundraising like happens in democratic institutions? Who will expose himself or herself as being the enemy of the state to write a check for an opposition political party? Nobody. So political parties cannot raise money. They are impoverished. Now they are of course also depending on government money through the electoral commission, whatever electoral they give them. But you know that is just scrams. In fact, I forgot to say, while the elites are co-opted by patronage of jobs and business and outright cash payouts. The population also receives patronage of handouts of crumbs. They get a basket of crumbs, tiny crumbs, which they throw to the population that is totally impoverished, and the population is thankful for the little they get. That is what this parish development model, those are crumbs that are thrown at the population to patronize the population. And they are normally thrown towards elections, those crumbs of distributing some money or some materials to plant or to do what, you know. That is the patronage to the population. So the political parties which cannot raise money must depend either on the government formally or informally. If you want to conduct a meaningful campaign, you will have to adapt. And you also know that if you want to be elected, because the person to announce the results is the capital of the state, because who announces the results? It is Mr. Museveni and his captured institutions. So if you want to be announced a winner, you have to play ball with what they want. Even if you are from the opposition, you have to be friendly in order to be announced a winner. That's why Mr. Museveni was saying there is good DP and bad DP. The good DP, he can allow them to be announced. Those are indeed not harmful to him and what he's doing. And that goes for all political parties. There will be good FDC, bad FDC, good NUP, bad NUP. You know, depending on who has aligned themselves with them. So this is the problem. State capture, failure to adapt, to find means of surviving the hostile environment of state capture by political parties. In the FDC, I became completely convinced about the completion of the state capture in elections after the 2011 elections. I was totally convinced that elections in and of them by themselves, they will not cause the change. They will not remove the Museveni family. They will not. I was convinced after the 2011 elections. And I because the person to announce the results is the capital of the state. Because who announces the results? It is Mr. Museveni and his captured institutions. So if you want to be announced a winner, you have to play ball with what they want. Even if you are from the opposition, you have to be friendly in order to be announced a winner. That's why Mr. Museveni was saying there is good DP and bad DP. The good DP, he can allow them to be announced. Those are indeed not harmful to him and what he's doing. And that goes for all political parties. There will be good FDC, bad FDC, good NUP, bad NUP. You know, depending on who has aligned themselves with them. So this is the problem. State capture, failure to adapt, to find means of surviving the hostile environment of state capture by political parties. In the FDC, I became completely convinced about the completion of the state capture in elections after the 2011 elections. I was totally convinced that elections in and of them by themselves, they will not cause the change, they will not remove the Museveni family. They will not. I was convinced after the 2011 elections. And I went back to my party. I was still party leader then, and suggested to my party to make adjustments to this new reality. And I proposed some of the adjustments they needed to do. This was at a retreat in a hotel here in Kiswa. I don't still remember the name of the hotel. In Kiswa, near Bugolobi there, opposite to Bugolobi, there is a hotel there where we had a retreat. And I made that presentation. I continued to make it in our organs to say, by the way, if we continue to be organized as we are, we shall be finished. I was a sole voice. Nobody believed me. All my colleagues said, no. That will actually create dictatorship in the party. I say, so you think you are going to have the democracy in the party the way other parties are organized in a democracy, in an democratic environment, in a military establishment, and you will survive? But for some reason, I never attracted support for that proposal. And the proposal was, of course, to change the structure of the party, which was a constitution of the party. But it was also that we must change the engagement, that it cannot be just engagement for elections. We must change the engagement and become some kind of liberation outfits. We must change the type of engagement. And when it didn't attract traction, in 2012, I asked my colleagues to free me, to step down from the leadership of the party, so that I could have more elbow space to link up with other people to pursue what I believed could be more efficacious. By that time, as all of you may remember, we had started demonstrations based on the economic situation that was there. By the way, the economic situation of 2011, which caused the inflation of 30% overnight, was because Mr. Museveni had raided the central bank and removed close to 2 trillion shillings without the authority of parliament, a lot of which money ended up in the politics of 2011. So there was inflation of supply of money that caused the prices to hike. And prompted the demonstrations that started then. So my sense was that the new fight cannot be a partisan fight. It cannot be a fight by just a party, because that's what parties are supposed to do. Parties are supposed to compete against each other. So FDC is supposed to see DP as a rival, to see NUP as a rival, to see JEMA as a rival, and to undermine each other and to compete to gain supremacy over the others. That's what happens in a democratic system. In the liberation system, the approach is different. The approach is that all of you are encumbered by the same problems that will not allow you to flourish. And therefore, you must unite and first get rid of that problem before you can create a democratic dispensation and then be able to compete. This is what up to date political parties have not come to terms with. And I have continuously sounded the warning that if we continue as we are, all political parties will indeed be captured, will be taken over by the construction that I have pointed out. And as you know, as we speak, no, in fact, Mr. Museveni himself was bragging way back that there will be no opposition political parties by 2021. Everybody is familiar with that assertion by Mr. Museveni. No political parties by 2021. So we must congratulate ourselves that we are still at least here talking about FDC and struggling, because we are not meant to be. So, you may want to investigate what happened to UPC, what happened to DP, and what will be happening to others. It's the same dynamics, similar dynamics. First of all, we claim to have internal democracy. We want to have internal electoral processes that can bring in leaderships of the political parties. And because we are open organizations, transparent organizations, it is easy for the hand of the state captor to come in and also become a contestant and create an internal dynamic. And even within parties, actually, the commercialization has been infused there. Even for internal party processes, you find a lot of money exchanging hands. Whenever we have had delegates conferences here, one time I wanted to raise it in our own elections of FDC. One time I wanted to raise the role or the source of money that was coming into our elections. I think that was the election of 2017. No. I think that was the election of 2010. Internal election of 2010. I wanted to raise this question. I was only convinced, well, not maybe convinced, but even maybe coerced by my colleague, the Honorable Augustine Ruzindana. He's the one who said, no, this will create a bad thing in the public. It will undermine our brand. Don't talk about it. So I kept quiet. But large sums of money have been coming into our party. At every election, internal, external, the large sums come. You find people our own delegates who come from upcountry. They are accommodated in hotels, not by the party, but by candidates. Accommodated in hotels, given money, and so on. Once you take that path, you know you are on the path of death as an organization and capture. And we have been traveling along that path for some time now. and we've warned. So, FDC, just like the other parties, I believe, has failed to adopt itself to the state capture that we face. And regardless of who is leading it, if you fail to adopt, you will get the consequences that I am talking about. So, I'm sure some of you have heard that I am being accused or condemned for failure to help in raising money for the 2021 elections. Said, you know, because I was a candidate before, I got some money for my own campaigns, but failed to get money for the campaign of Honorable Amuliat. That has been one of the issues raised. And maybe then I am now turning to my own role. The second point I said I will address, my role in the controversy. So first of all, since FDC was formed, I was its candidate in all the elections. 201 FDC was not there, so I was an independent. 206, that was shortly after FDC was formed, I was its candidate. 211, I was its candidate. 216, I was its candidate. And as I have told you, I didn't even want to become a candidate in 2016 because of what I had discovered in 2011. But that's a story for another day. So after 2016, I became firmly clear that I will not be a candidate under any circumstances in 2021. It was very, very clear to me that it would be a misuse. I would be misusing myself to be a candidate in 2021. So in 2018, I called a meeting of all my colleagues that took place in Namugongo at a place called Choto. There is a Choto Catholic, it's a Catholic institution. We held a meeting there and I informed them. I invited that meeting for the sole purpose of informing them that I would not be a candidate in 2021. That nobody, because in 2016 I had come under huge pressure by our colleagues to come in again. So to avoid that, well in advance, in 2018, I informed all our party leaders I will not be available. They had better start a process of getting somebody to contest in 2021. And of course, many of them were saying, no, you should stay. But I was completely unequivocal in the position that was taken. Regrettably, no process went underway in the party for another candidate to emerge. So when 21 was knocking, they again converged on me to say, now, really, you have to be the candidate. And I said, but are you people serious? You know all these years that I am not going to be a candidate. It's nonetheless, pressure kept on and kept on. So we literally got to the election without a candidate. The Honorable Amuriat was a last minute, kind of compromise that you now just go. You are the party leader after all. That's what party leadership entails. But there was no candidate. Now, anybody who has had any slightest interaction with electoral politics will know that fundraising for an election depends on the candidate. And not in the sense that the candidate must raise all the money, no. But the fundraisers would like to know who the candidate is they are supporting. You cannot raise funds without someone whom those who are, in fact, many not only want to raise funds for a particular candidate, but they also want the candidate to know them. Because they raise funds also with the hope that when you get there, they will be remembered. So you cannot raise money when you have no candidate. You must have a candidate and sell the candidate to potential funders. And I've told you we simply had no candidate and no plan. No plan to have one, and later on how to manage and fund those elections. There was absolutely no plan. A political party, maybe I should talk for FDC. FDC is supposed to have a campaign bureau, standing campaign bureau, which is permanent, whose purpose, I don't need to overemphasize, is among others to capture what the population needs so that they are translated into a manifesto. They should have a system of capturing the views of the people to come into the manifesto through the party structures. They should be the ones to make a plan of how to get candidates at all levels, how to support them, and so on. The campaign bureau must have the one that plans everything around elections. FDC has not had a campaign bureau. And so we were going to a campaign without a plan, without a candidate, without even the bureau that would be doing that. Now, you are already set for trouble. You have set yourself for trouble, you know? And so when they came to start putting pressure on me to become a candidate, I told them, no, there is no way I'm going to be a candidate. Then they said, okay, if you are not going to be a candidate, at least raise money for us. But you even then raise it for who? when there is no face of the election. So yes, it's true. They asked me to help in raising funds, but I told them, and some of those who were pressurizing me are people who, again, we had been working with closely in my own election. So even where we would raise money in my own election, they knew. But as I have said, you know, even those fundraisers need to know whom they are fundraising for. So the election was, the time was ticking, the election was coming. There were, of course, all other challenges, including the COVID challenges and so on. And there was this crisis, a crisis in which Amuriat eventually emerged as a candidate. And then, as that, in that melee of challenges, is where this whole thing that has been now, of course, liberally discussed in the public as dirty money, that's where it cropped up. And, you know, I became aware of it, discussed it with our close leaders, They were not even happy that I was discussing it, because they said, you were a party president, nobody asked you where money came from. Why are you now coming to ask? And having realized that there was this attitude, I backed off, because obviously it would, if it burst into the public like it has done, it would have been terrible for all our candidates and many other people who are not even anywhere related to the problem. So I backed off, and the election went. Having gotten Amuriat as a compromise to step in and battle it out, he set up a campaign bureau that was led by Chairman Birigwa and had many other members. Shortly thereafter, I heard that the Secretary General had disbanded it, said we shall not use this campaign bureau, and Amuriat seemed incapable of resolving those challenges. Because a presidential campaign is not like a parliamentary or a presidential campaign. You are campaigning in the entire country. And sometimes for a much shorter time than those who have smaller constituencies. In fact, those who have smaller constituencies, some of them have 6 months in which to campaign. But for the presidential, you have at most 2-3 months. I think the longest we have had has been close to 3 months, 90 days. But we have 100, we are now I think near 150 districts. So you'll be campaigning in 2 districts in 1 day, and you will never go back until the end of the campaign. So you need a mechanism that will keep your campaign alive all over the country and eventually take charge of the voting itself. And knowing, having been through this experience, I realized that a combination of that, of those weaknesses which were now administrative, and these other challenges of what I considered some kind of an infiltration, I decided also not to engage myself in to run around campaigning in the country, and especially considering that it was also hazardous with the COVID thing. I am not a young man now, I am an old man, so exposing myself to all those dangers, knowing that the result is not there. I said, no, let these people fight out. So that's where the specific problems have come up. Because that problem which I backed off before the election, after the election, I wanted it now engaged with. I thought it was important that we engage with it. And we set up a team to have more discussions on it, on that suspicious hand that I was worried about. And we had several meetings in Usabala there, but which also ended without any progress, because eventually those we were tasking to give us information eventually turned on us and said, but who are you in the party, you people? Are you an organ of the party? You are asking for all this as who? And it's true, I have no role in the party. I am not in NEC, I am not in a National Council, I am not in the Delegates Conference, I am not in the in the working committee. So I was only asking as simply an interested party member. But they said, no, you have no locus to inquire into this. And so I now was stranded. That's why when I was given an opportunity to talk to the leaders of the party in a national council meeting, I was invited to give a keynote speech to the National Council about some topic. And after giving my speech, I asked the chair if the chair could allow me to explain to the leaders who were assembled why I did not become active in the 2021 elections. Because that had now been turned over its head. A campaign was going on, how I am the one who led to the failure of the election. I didn't campaign for Amuriat. In fact, I am selfish. They supported me. I refused to support them. In fact, I am trying to fail the leaders from the east. I'm undermining leaders from eastern Uganda. So a tribal element crept in, and I could see it was heading in a dangerous direction. So I thought it was incumbent on me now to give some information to the members of the National Council. And that's what I did in the National Council, the last National Council of FDC. I told them pretty much what I have told you. And from there, quite evidently, some kind of a war broke out. But the National Council, having heard, because Nandala, of course, replied to what I said in the National Council, and I was not accusing Nandala as a person. This whole thing has now been branded like it's a Besigye Nandala duel. There was nothing like that. It was the party leadership as a whole that I was engaging over what had happened in the party. It was not specific to Nandala, but Nandala chose to reply at that National Council meeting, and the National Council decided in its wisdom that there should be set up a committee of elders to now investigate this matter thoroughly, try to reconcile all of us who were having issues in those matters, so that the party can once again move smoothly. It took some time for that committee to be appointed, and before the committee could be appointed, the mobilization against me was in progress, intensifying. But I was not very bothered. Eventually, the committee was appointed by the party president. He asked me whether the people he had appointed, I am fine with them. I said, I have no problem with anybody, provided they get what will help the party. And I appeared before the committee. But while the committee was sitting, the committee they themselves appointed was sitting, they set up on a campaign across the country. They called leaders of all the districts of Busoga and started discussing what the committee they set up was supposed to handle. They started showing how Besigye is the problem, how he has received money, he never accounts, how he has, I don't know, done what, how he's a tribalist, he doesn't want people from the east, and so on and so forth. From Busoga, they went to Mbale and held a meeting with all the districts of the other east. Then they went to Lango and held a meeting with the districts of Lango, went to Acholi, In the meantime, their committee is here seated. In fact, in one of the meetings that was in Busoga, the chair of the committee was also invited there. And that has eventually created a problem even within the committee. So, I think all that is possibly what culminated in some of our members deciding to talk amongst themselves about how to save the party. The ones who were convened by Honorable Semuju. I think now, and they are working on their own. I am not involved with them, but I think they considered that where things had reached, they should invite leaders of the party and see how to rescue the party. The other contradiction that is there is, of course, about the election. Because the FDC elects its leaders every 5 years. The last election was supposed to be in 2020. That's when the term of all our leaders expired, 2020. But when it expired, the party thought that it was inopportune to hold elections then because of the COVID pandemic. And so they invited the National Council to extend the life of the leaders in office by another 3 years, which 3 years are expiring this year. So there is supposed to be an internal election renewing the entire leadership of the party this year. That has become another point of contention. And I am not really familiar with all the details there. Maybe you should interrogate them and the other members of the party. But I know that there has been controversy over the management of that election. With the Electoral Commission especially, just like happens in all areas where capture happens, the Electoral Commission seems to be accused by some members or leaders of the party that the Electoral Commission is captured and acting in a manner that cannot lead to an acceptable outcome. There have also been some other contradictions, I think, relating to the impending elections. So there is a controversy. Some people say NEC sat and took a decision to stay elections and first do certain critical things, stay while doing certain critical things. Neither was the election stayed, nor were those things undertaken. So there are issues to do with the electoral process. And in the meantime, the National Council, which set up that Elders Committee, is supposed to now sit on the 28th of this month. It's been reconvened to sit on the 28th of this month. But in the meantime, the elections, while that controversy has not been resolved, which the National Executive, I think, was advising that they should first resolve these controversies so that they go into the election in a harmonious way. The other members or leaders of the party are saying, no, we don't care about all that. We shall go on with the elections, whether you like it or not, and whether there is National Council, whether NEC says what, we shall go on. So there is now clearly, I think, confusion in the organs of the party. That is what I can see in terms of specifics and my role in them. Where do we go from here? Or where does FDC go from here? I think without the leaders stepping back and taking a breath to calm down, the crisis will definitely escalate. And I can't predict where the party will end, but quite likely where others have ended. That's a likely trajectory. Because you see, what happens is, once people who are in the party now start acting against others, and others seek to resist them and so on, quite often those who are in power tend to revert to the state to protect them against their members. And I think that is a likely trajectory. If leaders don't step back and reflect on whether that's where they want FDC to go, I think it's important that leaders stop back, because there is now like an outright war. It's still a war of words, but it can degenerate even into a physical confrontation, that, like we have seen indeed outside headquarters of other parties. In fact, I hear that now to enter FDC headquarters, you need to be screened in some ways. There are kanyamas there and things like that. So that escalation is likely to continue if leaders don't step back, take a breath, and reconsider what all this means. And especially to try and resolve the contradictions which are there, which are real. But more especially, since this is also, and this is why this is very dangerous, because it is happening in an election year, internal election year. So, even before the election starts, you are at war. There is no way the managers of the elections are suspected to be uneven-handed. And that spells disaster. So I think it is important that all these grandstanding elections must continue, whatever should be avoided. I think time should be created by the party leaders to resolve these contradictions, to have a credible process, a process in which all members are confident. These other issues can even play themselves out in the elections, and maybe there will be no way of stopping that. But that's sometimes what elections resolve. They resolve contradictions, provided the outcome will be respected by all. Because if they are not, then you are heading for a rupture. That is the unfortunate trajectory you may end up with. So I hope that there will be sense prevailing to halt the electoral processes, at least until the next National Council, where the controversies that had been discussed by them and they appointed a committee can then engage with that and engage with the other issues that are causing controversies. and hopefully get a solution out of it. But to wind up, let's interrogate, and for the political parties, I would like to interrogate why Museveni would want to fund his opponents. Because one can see it as a contradiction in terms. Why should I give you money when you are going to compete against me? You see, Museveni knows that there is no power in parliament. He doesn't care whether you are in fact, he wants us to be in parliament to legitimize government. Say, but you also win elections. You are also there. You know? Why do you complain when you are defeated? You are also there. So he doesn't he actually wants us to be in parliament, provided we don't seek to remove him, provided we are good opposition. If we are good opposition, he has no problem with us being in parliament. He will give us money so that we are there, so that we are also in the local areas. There is some legitimization it creates, that there is opposition in Uganda, there is, and without that money, actually, opposition indeed, even as some kind of flowers, may cease, because you may even fail to get people to be nominated. So he wants why Museveni would want to fund his opponents, because one can see it as a contradiction in terms. Why should I give you money when you are going to compete against me? You see, Museveni knows that there is no power in parliament. He doesn't care whether you are in fact, he wants us to be in parliament to legitimize government. Say, but you also win elections. You are also there. Why do you complain when you are defeated? You are also there. So he doesn't he actually wants us to be in parliament, provided we don't seek to remove him, provided we are good opposition. If we are good opposition, he has no problem with us being in parliament. He will give us money so that we are there, so that we are also in the local areas. There is some legitimization it creates, that there is opposition in Uganda, there is, and without that money, actually, opposition indeed, even as some kind of flowers, may cease, because you may even fail to get people to be nominated. So he wants to fund an impotent opposition. Secondly, he does not want these opposition groups to link up. The linking up of opposition groups is something that he does not want to see. Whichever, the opposition groups must fight each other, actually, must be at war with each other. And he is behind the creation of feuds between opposition groups. And part of that money is intended to sustain the separation of political parties that are in captivity. They should not link up. Now, if we don't do that, we will never get out of captivity. So that's why, for me, even now, yes, I'm affected by what is going on in FDC, because it has been a strong party with a strong mission of liberation. So if it is weakened, certainly we suffer. But at the end of the day, what will liberate Uganda is to have a linkage of all those who are in captivity, regardless of their parties. We must get together and not focus on his election, but focus on a resistance struggle to remove him. So he's opposed to both. He is opposed to any resistance struggle outside the elections. He wants just, if you are talking about elections, you are his friend. Why? Because election is the killing ground. The election is a prepared killing ground, which will never remove him. He knows resistance, activism, defiance has removed dictators. Many, including here in Africa. So Museveni fears two things: fighting him outside elections, whether with guns or without guns. That's his focus. So he pays money to the politicals not to engage in fighting him outside the elections and in not getting together to build a strong popular force that will achieve that. So it's up to us. And that's where I end this. Sorry, it has been long, I think longer than I expected. And for that reason, I think I shouldn't get into the Luganda. If you have questions, you can ask questions in Luganda and I can answer you in Luganda.
Thank you so much. Kibuuzo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start.
Thank you. Doctor, I called you 2 days ago, and some of these questions I put, and you have clearly explained. For me, I just wanted to know, you have told us the story, but then you want to corroborate that story with what facts are. For instance, you getting money and not accounting it to party leaders. We want to know what's the truth about that. And then tribal sentiments, which have been long living in the politics of FDC and actually maybe across the whole country. We'd like to know what is the truth about that on your side.
Well, first of all, regarding the details of money, as I pointed out, this is a matter over which there has been a committee trying to get details of all the allegations and accusations here and there. I understand that committee has written a report, and I think it's unfair for me to repeat what I told the committee before that report is revealed. Once the committee report has been revealed, I will definitely, regardless of what it says, I may give you more information on that. But I wouldn't like to join my colleagues in abusing the committee they set up. Secondly, he had two questions. And the second one I think is important. The tribal question. I told you about the state capture. Part of what is used in state capture is divide and rule. The policy of divide and rule. Wherever a small group of people captures many people, it does not want the many people to remain united, because then they will easily remove the small group. So the small group undertakes a policy to chop up the big group and possibly to put them in collision with each other so that they don't concentrate on one causing the trouble for all of them. So this policy of divide and rule was there even in the colonial time. It was in fact that this word divide and rule was coined in the colonial times. Museveni has perfected the art of divide and rule. When he captured Uganda and northern Uganda resisted him, he now chose to turn southern Uganda against the north. And if any of you remembers the election of 1996, his first election, he got the national paper then and put on its front page scars. It was covered, the whole front page was covered by scars. And the message was, the people in the north are killers. They are the ones who are responsible for these scars. I am your protector against the killers. So he divided Uganda against the south that was killed by the north. And he's the protector of the south. When I came to contest in 2001, he said I had betrayed. Even now he talks about my betrayal. Sometimes he says, how could he come up when we were still busy fighting Kony? That's exactly what he means. How does me, who was a member of NRM, who is a member of Southern Uganda, now want to challenge and remove the protector of Southern Uganda? And you will remember, after that election, I was prosecuted in court for being a supporter and member, actually, of the Kony War. I was prosecuted in court that I was part of the Kony War. You remember the whole story of Opoka? James Opoka? They were linking me to Kony. In the trial, which was in the High Court here, they brought witnesses to testify that I was actively working with Kony. They brought a girl called Jennifer Aliemo. That is the girl who used to come to court with a huge headgear, where eventually we discovered they were headphones, where they were telling her what to say. Whenever she was asked a question, they would communicate. You say this through the headgear. Jennifer Ariemo, I don't know where she is now. She said I had held meetings with her and sent her, I think even given her money to take to Kony. They brought in court a former member of Kony's army called Kamuduru. Kamuduru had just been given amnesty by Museveni, and he was now brought to court to testify against me as having been aware that I am working with them. Kamuduru was here in court. I don't know where he is now, you know? So, anybody who opposed then was part of the killers. So, they branded me part of Kony. But we resisted and kept on mobilizing. When he realized that the South had been now mobilized, his lies could no longer hold. They now changed the story. And that is using the capture of the media and propaganda. They now say that Besigye actually works with Museveni. In fact, he is the same with Museveni, he was deceiving the North. He was deceiving the others. He is actually a friend and worker with Museveni. And now Museveni became the friend of the North and the East. And he said, no, now we must end all these problems in the North. He went there to make roads, to do what? Because things had changed where?
The South.
In the South. Now they know they are no longer killers. So now they are his friends. That's why now he has shifted patronage from the South, because he has been rejected in the South. So he has shifted patronage to where? To the North. That's why now you find the vice president is from Teso, where Besigye received the greatest support. Whenever I'm in all these areas, and it's not a joke, whenever I'm in Lango, Acholi, West Nile, Teso, I always tell those people there that this is the place I feel most at home. Why? Because when I was actually being rejected in the South, they indeed embraced me and gave me sack and support and everything. And that's where, even today, whenever I am there, I feel at home. But now, because they want to brand a different brand, now their friend is Museveni. And that's where he's now appointing people from Teso. So the chief justice, the vice president is Teso. The speaker, Teso. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Teso. And others, these Erweru, or even in the army, those Erwerus coming up, the other one of disaster preparedness and others, the IGP and so on. Now it was focusing the patronage to the North. The Chief Justice from the North. Of course, previously the Speaker Olanya was from the North and so on. So now, that is how even the mouths have been consumed. They see him now in the North. So patronage is now in the North. And so, what is emerging that I am now against, now I am the one against the East. I will also hear it, I'm sure, that I am now the one against the North. Because now it is him who is their friend, because he has been ejected from the South, whom he was protecting. The people he was protecting in Buganda threw him out. So he has run across the river now. And now portraying the people in the South as the ones who are, I think soon they will become the killers of the North. And he will be the protector of the North against the South. So this is a divide and rule. And when you hear somebody bring, and it's very painful, especially in FDC, for people, because this is, we thought that this is really a revolutionary party with one Uganda, one people. That is what makes us. So to start infusing tribes is extremely shameful. Because if I was against the East, I am accused of having brought Amriat against Muntu. So where was Muntu coming from? And where was Amriat coming from? So why would I then fight Muntu and the other one? Of course, there have been many now accusations. Everything that can be thrown on me is being thrown on me. But I think the population will eventually get a Kasengeja. And of course, I have been accused by the Honorable Nandala now publicly that I didn't support him when he contested against General Muntu. So I don't know whether I have heard it going around. And it is true. I can confirm that I didn't support Nandala. I didn't. I am not the one to tell lies. I didn't certainly support Muntu. Because you see, it would have been, in my view, wrong. I was the party president. I was the one who handed over to the winner. So what is being suggested is that I should have actively participated in choosing my successor. Wouldn't that divide the party then? Because I was a president for everybody. I was a president for everybody. So why should I now say these ones are not mine? I will campaign for Nandala. Muntu is not, I am not his president. So I took a deliberate decision not to campaign for Muntu or for Nandala. And I had contested with Muntu. Previously, I had contested with Muntu. So actually, I was expected to fight Muntu because he had been my opponent. But I didn't. And that is my crime. To express open support, that I didn't express support that would help Nandala win. And there are many, many other accusations, but they will be sorted out, I think so.
Yakaya.
Dr. Noyanjese Besigye Akakasiza Ekibiina Vision 2. Ebintu bibiri. Abamu bakiteekako gwe nti ekizibu kya FDC. Ebizibu obadde obiraba naye ebimu nga obisirikira. Abamu ku bammemba abanene ne bazifuna. Ekyo bammemba abawansi mu FDC ne bagwamu amaanyi. Basigala nga bagamba mwamanya ensonga ezo ne mutazoogerako. Osanga olwaleero ekisajjuse kugejjanga bwe kiri. Ekyokubiri nti mu kiseera we wabeerera nga party president okuzimba emirandira gy'ekibiina okuviira ddala wansi kwali kutono. Osanga kati ge malibu agalimu ng'ebizibu bye tulaba olwaleero biviira ddala mabega mbo bisanja byo kyenjagala okutanyaawo.
Should I bring another question so that you answer them all?
Okay.
But
I'd like to ask a question about the Samuel Letters. You learned about this in 2020. After I wrote the story in 2021, and I asked you, you denied it. You denied, you told me that Amuriat had used the small budget, that he struggled in his campaign, but you had that information. So my question is, why now? Why not? You said that it was the election, you didn't want to antagonize the election. But the election ended in 2021. Why has it taken you almost 3 years for you to come out and speak and make this public? And number two, you have said that you don't believe in political parties as means of bringing about change in Uganda. So do you think that it is worth fighting for the FDC? After all, you don't even believe in parties as means of bringing change in Uganda?
That you take questions in Uganda. Yes,
Well, I think the ones who want answers in Uganda will ask in Uganda. Yes. I take that those need questions, need answers in English.
Yes, Doctor, nze alibikira kola ne NTV naye obuuza ndabusatu okusookera ddala twagala tukifune mu bulamu butufu ddala ekibiina ekya FDC kyafuna ssente okuva eri President Museveni mu kalulu aka 2021 mukulu Africa Muriat bwe yali nga yakwatidde ekibiina ekyo bbendera n'ekirala bw'obanga wakimanyako olina kyokonyeeko nga kiraga nti waliwo some kind of blackmail okuva eri abakulembeze abali mu kiseera ekyo nga bagamba nti nga gwe bwewazifuna wali tosobola kubanga ozidisclosinga then FDC eyolekedde ki naddala mu bino ebigenda mu maaso kubanga kakati waliwo embeera eno.
Canary?
quite from the ongoing pressure from National Assembly, the Honorable Nandala says that you were handed 300 million shillings for party agents during the elections, and you returned that money in installments, and there is a claim up to now. If you could respond to that, please.
I guess those are all. So first of all,
You wait.
why saying didn't I speak out quickly about the problems that were emerging in the party? It really, you have to understand, I have two issues. First of all, I was the party leader and stepped down, and other leaders were appointed or elected. There is a danger, and in fact I have been very, very unfairly accused by many people that I still breathe behind the necks of those who are now running the party. And it can really happen to keep on interfering with the management of the party as if you want your own ideas to continue in the leadership of the party when you are no longer a leader. So I have really attempted to not engage myself in the running of the party or trying to, comment and influence what goes on, so that leaders, take charge of their parties. Occasionally, and it is only very occasionally, when I may meet a leader and comment about anything on the party. I have been interacting with them, but not on party matters. We've been interacting maybe on how they could help in the broad struggle that we are engaged in, the resistance struggle, but not on party matters. And I believe they can, testify on that. Never get involved. But secondly, even where you think you should be involved, the nature of involvement is important. Because you must first of all exhaust the internal mechanisms of resolving any contradiction for that contradiction to go to a wider membership of the party. And as I have told you, that is, in this particular regard, that has been my approach. When I first got the issues, I discussed them with those directly concerned with it and nobody else. In fact, hardly anyone got to know about this until when I talked to the wider leadership in the National Council. It's also a small organ. It consists of district leaders. But that is now, I had now escalated it to a higher number of people to know about it. So I think it's, and I have told you that before the National Council, we did not, to answer, I think it was Canary who was asking, was it Canary who was asking why now?
No, it was Bate.
Yes, it has not been now. It started in 2021. It has taken time. We have had meetings, and getting people to meet is not easy. So we get meetings, you spend 2 months maybe before you get another meeting, but we haven't started now, not at all. This is the culmination of it. And so when you eventually can't fail to handle something, then you take it to, you involve more people until you go to the public. By the way, even when we were breaking with NRM in the 80s, in the 90s, especially 90s, that's exactly what happened. We had many meetings, internal meetings, but they were not resolving anything. We escalated it to have more people involved. Still nothing worked until it was. Ezandibadde oba oliawo ziyamba mu kugonjoola ebizibu bino. Nafuuka party leader mu 2005 nga guggwako nga naakadda kuva South Africa. Of course mukimanyi nti oluvannyuma nayitira mu makomera n'ebirala. Naye amakomera n'emisango egyo gye nkubulidde bwe jaggwa ne tutandika okuzimba structure buto. Wali wazimbibwa structure naye ne tuzimba structure buto. Okuviira ddala wansi ku buli kyalo okutuukira ddala waggulu. Era y'ensonga lwaki twafuna akalulu akalala n'ate ku ntikko nga 29. So akasooka kaali 25, akookubiri kaali 29 nga twali tuzimbye kuviira ddala wansi, kati 29 nga tulina okufuna akalulako ku ntikko. Emyaka 5 nga teginaggwa. So ne taamu yange eyasooka nagikutulamu olw'okwagala okuzimba structure tuuke ku ntikko. Era ke kalulu ke nasooka okuvuganya ne gye n'omuntu aka 29. 2012 emyaka 3 nga akalulu ako kawedde nalekulira kuva mu kibiina mu bukulembeze bw'ekibiina. Kuva lwe nalekulira okuva mu bukulembeze, gye n'omuntu yaddamu n'azimba structure. Jjukira yali kampeyini ye enkulu nga agamba tulina okuzimba structure ez'amaanyi. N'addamu n'azimba structure kuva wansi kutuuka waggulu. Era structure gye n'omuntu gye yavuganyizaamu ne Honorable Nandala. Structure gye n'omuntu gye yavuganyizaamu ne Nandala ye structure gye nalekawo. Structure gye nalekawo ye yamulonda. N'alonda structure endala ye yamuggyawo. Kubanga abantu abamu bagamba nti nze nali mukulu kwe olw'okumuggyawo. Nedda, nze structure gye nalekawo ye yamulonda. N'azimba structure endala n'emuggyawo. N'olwekyo ekibiina kizze kizimba ki? Structures. Era wandibadde nga wazimbibwa endala 2019 yeyo eyayisibwa bubi COVID. So structure nakati ekyaliwo yeyo gye n'omuntu gye yakola ki? Gye yazimba. So mujjukire nze kati okunvunaana ku bitambula mu FDC tekiba kya bwenkanya. Kubanga nze nakulembera FDC asooka era ne tugezaako okuzimba ekintu ekipya ekitaaliwo. Ne tukizimbira myaka 7 gyokka. Nze nakulembera FDC myaka 7. Kuva lwe nava mu bukulembeze kati wayiseewo emyaka 12 ndowooza. 12 oba 12 ndowooza kuva lwenavamu. So maze emyaka ate wayiseewo abakulembeze banjawulo kati babiri. So influence yange mu kibiina tesobola kubanga yeeyo gye nalekawo. Waliwo ebintu birala bingi, buli omu azimbye structure yiye biki. Naye ebizibu bino tebiva mu butazimbibwa structure. Ndowooza biva mu structure ngeri ki gye zikozesebwamu obukulembeze. I think the problem is a leadership problem. So byemanyi byendowooza byendaba byonna nabikawa kawandiisa alipooti tenatuuka eri gye abaakateekako kati okujja wano mbawe details ze nawa akakiiko era nga bannange bye babadde bagezaako okukola sikirowooza nti kya buntu bulamu era sijja kukikola. Naye bwe banaamala kusoma ripooti awo nja kubawo waddembe okulaga oba bifulumidde mu ripooti oba tebifulumiddeemu wendi nja kubawo waddembe okulaga nze kyemmanyi. Nawulidde nti ripooti ejja kwanjulwa nga 28 mu National Council. Si kyekiseera ekiri wala. Oba nange yabuuziza oba nange mu ngeri y'emu nafunanga ssente oba simanyi oba nakifunye bulungi. Of course jjukira nze emyaka gyonna 7 gye nabeerera mukulembeze w'ekibiina twali tetufuna ssente za gavumenti nga eziriwo olwaleero, zaali teziriiwo. N'olwekyo ekibiina twakyeyimirizaawo ffekka nga ssente twali tuzijja oba oliawo ku mutemwa gwe twateeka ku bammemba baffe abaali bafunye ebifo ebirina omusaala ng'abaali mu palamenti n'abalala abalina emisaala nga tubasaba okutuwa contribution etambuza ekibiina n'okukola fundraising ezisobola okufuna naye nga za kimpowooza era ezisobola okutuwa ssente ezitambuza emirimu. Bannaffe nga nti abatuwa ssente kituufu tulina obuvunaanyizibwa obw'obutaboogerako mu ngeri esobola okubateeka mu kabi. Nannyo abali wano oli bw'abeera wano n'akuwa kasente kiba kya bulabe okutegeeza nti ono yatuwa ssente. Naye mmwe ng'abakulembera ekibiina mmwe mulina okumanya ssente gye zikola ki, gye ziva era n'entambuza yaazo. So ssente zonna bwe zijja ngeri ki gyonna gye zivuddemu zigenda ku akawunti yaki y'ekibiina era ekibiina ne kisalawo nga bwe zikola ki, nga bwe zitambulamu. Era nanyigira nnyo bannange ne mbabuuza nti so kye mwagala okutegeeza musobola okuba nga mwalowoozaako nti nzija ssente ewa Museveni ne musirika, kubanga bwe musirika kati awo nammwe muba mufuuse eki balabe b'ekibiina, kubanga bw'ojja ssente kwoyo gwe mwagala okulwana naye kati eyo eba treason oba okolaganye n'oyo, kubanga jjukira tetulaba omulimu gwe tukola nga just okuvuganya. Waliwo eyawamba ensi mu bumenyi bw'amateeka gwe mwagala kununula ensi. So bw'owulira nti waliwo akolagana naye butereevu kiba kya bulabe era mulina okusitula amaloboozi mu kyogereko. Njagala tutegeeragane nti tulina okwawula okufuna ssente kwabo oba oliawo abakola ne Museveni n'okuzijja kwani? Ku Museveni yennyini. ne Museveni abasumbuzi bonna balina okulaga nti bakolagana nani ne Museveni kubanga bwe batakiraga ajja kubateekako emisolo ajja kukola ki era bw'akola fundraising abasuubuzi abangi bakola ki bawaayo nga bo balina n'okulaga nti bakoze eki nti bawaddeyo naye ffe bwe batuwa tebaagala wamanya nti bakoze eki nti bawadde neeno naye nga bwe guli abasuumuzi baagala baweeno neeno nayo tomanya enkya so eri bwe bwateekayo akawumbi gwakuwa miliyoni 2 singa naawe olituuka era akujukiza tomanyi nti nakuwaayo miliyoni 2 so njagala twawule okufuna ssente kwabo abakolagana ne Museveni n'okufuna ssente kwani ku Museveni in fact n'abakola naye mukyama so eri bakola oluusi n'abapoliisi bennyini bano abatukuba emiggo akukuba emiggo emisana ekiro n'akuweerezayo 10 n'agamba mugende mu maaso so ekyo kyanjawulo n'okugenda mu State House ozijjawa kwoyo kubanga noono akuweera eno mu nkukutu naye ayagala oli akole ki agende so waliwo enjawulo awo era nze njagala kubategeeza nga siina kwerumamu kwonna sikolaganangako kuva lwe nafuluma kuva mu NRM sikolanga nako ne mwami Museveni n'ensonga ze zonna mu ngeri yonna sikolanga nako nabo kolagana kwange nabo tusisinkana mu lutalo wakati sikolanga nako naye era emirundi gye tusinkanye just kusinkana kubeera wamu ne tusinkana giri ebiri mu mikolo gy'abannaddiini enamugongo otherwise simusinkanangako siina kolagana naye ne miliyoni 3 nakyo ndowooza sijja kukiwa budde nja kukyogerako era nga alipoota efulumye patronage kitegeeza ki patronage kitegeeza nti oyina favor gy'owa abantu bakole ekyokola ki ye patronage kubanga oyina gw'owa akole ekyoyagala okozese by'oyina either okugaba emirimu oba okugaba ssente oba okugaba ebintu kuwadde ettaka kuwadde donation kuwadde kino eyo ye patronage njagala ombuulire oba nze nina kyengaba tiwaliwo ogwengabira omulimu mu pate waliwo ogwengabira ssente waliwo ogwengabira tewali era n'okubeeramu munda mu kibiina siriimu nakutegeezezza ne mu ntuula z'ebibiina siriiyo so kati nfuuka ntya kizibu kya kibiina nga siri munda mukyo siina kyenkozesa ku influencinga bali munda kiki ekinfuula naye nakugambye propaganda abalina obuyinza bw'okugizimba n'okugitambuza n'okugifuula amazima era yaani ye yawamba eggwanga yanfuula owakoonye yanfuula omuntu we yanfuula alwanyisa ab'omu east yanfuula omugagga omuvundu omanyi ennaku zino ka business koka kembadde nkola ka petrol station y'Ensambya nakawaayo nakazaayo era abantu nendaba kyotegeeza totoro zonna sizizo kubanga wali wazimbibwawo propaganda Besigye nga bwali mugaga muki muvundu era aina mahoteri hoteri Equatoria yiye simanyi hoteri ki simanyi aina amasomero simanyi mugaga ebyo yabijjawa wakati mu lutalo nga agamba bamulwanyisa yabijjawa ekituufu byennina nabeera nabyo nga entalo zino tezinakola ki ne ka petrol station ako nakatandika mu 95 nga bino sinalowooza nakulowooza nti nja kulwana ne mwami Museveni ettaka lyange lyekasanga tikwempangaalira naligula era mu myaka egy'ekyenda nga sinalowooza kulwana ne mwami Museveni nali sirowooza nti nja kusulayo eyo nali naligula nkolereyo emirimu nnundireyo nkolereyo emirimu nali sirowooza nti nja kusulayo okulowooza okusulayo kati nga ntandise kulwana nga wensula sikola ki siina nga saagala era bangobe ogenda opangise wano bayite mu mupangisa mu landlord akugobe kwe kugenda akangende akako ke kakonya so babadde wekirala
Then BBS yusome kibuzo kyo.
Dr. Nzekose mukino kwa BBS telefoni. Dr. Magezi kigowa FDC musera kino kyerimu. Na enebine biri kuduka ganya.
Ndowooza yabadde yakatuuka ambuuza amagezi gembawa magezi era natutte ebbanga ddene wano nga ngezaako okugalaga ono abuuzizza oba ekibiina kitwala mu NUP era ye accusation emu nagambye nti waliwo ebintu bingi kati byonna ebinjogerwako bingi biyitirivu sobola kubiddamu byonna nembiyitamu naye nga ekyokutunda FDC mu NUP gwe musango ogumu gwe nnina abajjukira oba abayina abategeera ebibadde bigenda mu maaso sirowooza nti NUP we yatandikira ne weetambudde waliwo ogwekubye n'okuvuma n'okukola buli kimu nga nze jjukira bandumbako ne butereevu wali ku Bulange simanyi muntu omulala eyalumbibwa okujja nga abanumba baani ba NUP naye nakugambye nti ne bw'obeera mu kibiina ki ng'olumba nze nja kugamba njagala tukolaganire wamu oba onumba otya nja kusigala nga nkugamba ti sinze mulabe tutunuulize emmundu zaffe eryani ery'omulabe era kyembadde ngamba aba NUP ebbanga lyonna okutuusa kati bwe twatandika n'okufuna okutegeeragana titulina ekizibu kimu era kati tubadde tutambula bulungi n'abakulembeze ba NUP mwatulaba e Nairobi mutulabye mu bitundu bingi nga kati tutegeeragana of course abaagala tetukolagana era mwebali enjuyi zonna nga baagala ekyo kireme kukola ki kubeerawo era nga bwe nagambye so yes nze nja kukolaganira ddala wamu butereevu ne NUP n'ebibiina ebirala mu kulwana n'omulabe gwe tulina era abasitula amaloboozi okugamba NUP simanyi bali batya tewali kibiina omutali bulabe ne mu NUP abalabe gye bakola ki nayo gye bali ng'abali mu FDC ng'abali mu bibiina byonna so abatali balabe tunaabalabira mu bikolwa nga beegasse kulwana teri ngeri ndala gye tusobola kumanya omulabe okuggyako abagaana okwegatta tukole ki tununule ensi ekyo kyekiddako era kati tweteekateeka okulaba nti tulumba batajje mu kulumba be tunaamanya nti balina ki balina ebizibu. Ndowooza biwedde, mwebale nnyo, mwebalire ddala.
Ngende n'ebyo.
Ebigambo bwe bityo bwe bitambudde, olukuŋŋaana bwe lutambudde bwalutambuza Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye ng'annyonnyola ensonga enkulu eziri mu kibiina kya Forum for Democratic Change. Abotodde omwami Nandala Mafabi, Patrick Oboya Amuriat President nti bano be bannantabulatabula be baleetedde ekibiina kino kyagala okukisaanyaawo. Agambye olutalo lwe ne Nandala Mafabi lwatandika dda ng'akyali mu Forum for Democratic Change nga President, era lwe waliwo okulonda kwa Nandala Mafabi ne Mugisha Muntu. Nandala Mafabi n'atandika okulangira Kano Dr. Kiiza Besigye nga batayagaliza Eastern Uganda kukulembera FDC, era nga yagala ekibiina kibeere ky'abakiga bannankole bokka aba Western. Nti kyova olaba alemesa Nandala Mafabi era nti yawagira Mugisha Muntu. Kyokka Dr. Kano Kiiza Besigye ategeezezza nti yatawagiranko ku Mugisha Muntu ku kifo ky'okuba President wa Forum for Democratic Change, era tawagiranko Nandala Mafabi kubanga ye yali mukulembeze nga tayagala kwawulayawula mu kibiina. N'agamba era ensimbi yafunanga ensimbi nga ye mu kibiina eziddukanya ekibiina naye tayinza kugera makubo ki gye zaavanga kubanga bakulembeze abali mu kibiina bo bamanya amakubo gye bajjanga ssente ezo ezaddukanyanga ekibiina ne campaign. Agamba Nandala Mafabi ye bwe yatuuse okuddukanya ekibiina ate ssente yagenze kuzijja wa mwami Museveni mu NRM, era nga ssente zino ziwulemeddwa okuwaaka ntabi tewa gye zaava nawa gye ziina na biki bye zirina okukola mu kibiina. Agamba nti Nandala Mafabi afuuse nattabula, tayagala kubeerawo kulonda mu kibiina, kulonda bakulembeze bapya. Ayagala abeereko nga ye mukulembeze forever ne Patrick Oboya Amuriat. Ne bagamba nti ate ekibiina kino buli luvannyuma lwa myaka 5 nnoono yaakyo nti kirina okulonda abakulembeze abajja. Naye kati bano abakulembeze abaliko beeyongeza dde emyaka 3 mu 2020 ne bagamba bajja kuddamu okulonda nga wayise emyaka 3 olw'okuba nti waliwo ekirwadde kya COVID-19. Kati omwaka guno ebisanja kyabwe kiggwako, kyokka ate balime baagala kweyongezaayo kati nga batandise okutegeka okulonda okwekimpatiira okutali kuyise mu mateeka, era basobole okwenywereza ddala ekibiina kino bakitwalekere ddala mu nsawo zaabwe nga ekya ekya UPC bwe kyakolebwa Museveni n'akitwala n'ekya DP bwe kyakolebwa Museveni n'akitwala. Ayogedde nti mwami Museveni obaawo ekitundu ekimulwanyisa nga ekyakiddukamu ng'agenda ate wali ekitundu ekirala ng'akirimba nga ky'ekitundu ekimulwanyisa bwe kyagala okutta ekitundu ekirala. Nti yabikozesa nnyo ng'akozesa nti abanorthana baali balwanyisa Abaganda, baali balwanyisa abannankola abakiga abanyolo nga baagala okubatula okuba baali babajje mu buyinza. Kati ate abannankole abakiga bamwefulidde n'Abaganda, kati yagenze mu Northern Uganda ababuuliranga Abaganda, Abanyolo, Abakiga, Abannankole bwe bambalwanyisa bwe baagala okukomyawo kkoni mu kitundu kyabwe. Kyova olaba olwaleero abakulembeze bonna abasinga mu gavumenti ya mwami Museveni, abaduumizi b'amagye bonna bava mu Northern Uganda, Eastern Uganda. Nti kitegeeza kati bali baafudde baddaalingi, baafudde ab'omukwano be, era ayagala abanywereze ddala okulaba nti nno ate alwanyisa bitundu ebirala. Naye nabo banaakya olunaku olw'enkya ne bamuviiramu ne bagamba atukukooye atajja kufunawo ekitundu ekirala, tamanyi kitundu kinaaba kikyajja okugamba nti ate bali baagala kubatta. Agambye ebyobufuzi bwa Museveni bwe bityo bwe bitambula eva lubeerera, abeera divide and rule. Abayiseemu eggaali obafuge, bayiseemu eggaali obafuge, nti ye bw'atyo bw'akola ebintu bye, bw'alamuza ebintu bye okusobola okulaba nga yeefutubaza ku ggwanga Uganda. Agambye Kiiza Besigye nti ye wa Forum for Democratic Change era tagenda kuva mu kibiina kye, naye era tekigenda kumugaana kulagaana ekyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi Wine ko n'ekibiina kya NUP bwe kibanga kigenda okujja mwami Museveni mu ntebe. Agambye tagenda kulagaana n'abo balemeza Museveni mu ntebe, wabula wakulagaana n'abo abagenda okujja Museveni mu ntebe. Nti bangi bakola ebintu byebakola naye nga byakunywereza mwami Museveni mu ntebe so si kumugjamu. Kyagala kitagenda kukolagana nakyo era takisuubira kubanga atambula nakyo era abamuvunaana omusango okwanta akulagana ne NUP Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi Wine agamba balabe beggwanga era Museveni basasula ensimbi empitirivu obuwanana okusobola okulemesa eggwanga okugenda mu maaso n'okumujja mu ntebe. Agambye ye tagenda kufugulwa bigambo by'abantu aboogera obwogezi nga tebamagala kugenda mu maaso kwa ggwanga na kulaba nga ggwanga Uganda lifuna obukulembeze lifuna enkyukakyuka ez'omuggundu. Bino abyogedde ng'agamba nti abantu abasinga mu Museveni abawa okukola obujagalalo obuno okukola okwawukana mu bibiina by'obukulembeze obutafokasinga ku kintu kimu okusobola okumujja mu ntebe. Agambye ye ali focused era ajja kutamana abali focused okulaba nga bajja kumwa Museveni. Era n'asaba Bannayuganda nti mwenna mukwate ekkubo limu, mwenna mwogere ekigambo kimu nti twagala nkyukakyuka, twagala change, twagala Mwai Museveni awummule, twagala Mwai Museveni ave mu eyo entebe ate Bannayuganda bafune obuyinza bwabwe basobole okweyagalira mu ggwanga Uganda. Lukuŋŋaana lubadde lunene, ebigambo abyogedde bingi era atangazizza ebintu bingi nti kituufu ekibiina kya Forum for Democratic Change kyawambibwa kiri mu buwambe naye Bannayuganda balina okulaba nga bazzaawo ekibiina kyabwe nga butagenda gafula bwe kityo nga kitwalibwa abatamanya ngambi wa Mwai Museveni. Agambye awagira omukulu Ssemujju Ibrahim Nganda n'abakulembeze banne kye baakoze okulaba nga balwanira ekibiina kya FDC obutasaanawo. N'agamba nti si abali emabega, si abawagira, si abapika bakole kye baakoze naye nga amazima galina okwogerwa nti ekibiina kyo kigenda. Agambye oba Mwai Museveni addako NUP tamanyi naye nti NUP nayo ebeere steady ebeere ready nti bino biyinza okuggyewaayo essaawa yonna nti ate ne kati gyebiri naye bigenda bikula mpolampola n'olwekyo kirina okukolebwa si kyakuzimba ebibiina byabufuzi binyweza ssaawa zino wabula kyakugyawo Mwai Museveni kuba ne munaazimba demokurasiya mu bibiina by'obufuzi mumala budde mumala time mumala biseera Mwai Museveni ajja kukola by'anaakola ajja kukola katembayo okulanga ebibiina by'obufuzi ebyabijjawo ye asigale ng'ali mu ntebe era nti ajja kuwa n'ensimbi abakulembeze mu bibiina eby'enjawulo nti bakole campaign kasitaba nga agenda kuyingira mu parliament oba kubeera ku bifo byonna bagenda okubeerako nga tebagenda kusinya ku ntebe kati kyova olaba nti mulimu abakulembeze bangi mu kibiina kya NUP nga baasirika nga n'obwoyogera kitebanyega kubanga Museveni yabawa entebe nti ensimbi tebamutambalanga tebegeza ne beetaba ku by'okumujja ku ntebe. Bigambo bya Dr. Kiiza Besigye byatangazizza eri eggwanga ku ebyo bigenda mu maaso mu bulamu bwe mu kibiina kya FDC nawaawe tulina okulaganga eggwanga okusobola okutaasa ensi yaffe. Mbaagala nnyo mwenna ababaddeko mwebale kubaako mwebale kutwagala mwebale kutugoberera. Omukama Katonda nsaba bankuumire tujja kuba tuddamu tuwaye naye nga bikyagenda mu maaso. Ndabye Nandala Mafabi n'omukulu Patrick Oboya Mulu ati nabo boogedde era nabo tugenda kufuba okubaleeta tulabe nno tutegeera biki ebigenda ddala mu maaso mu ggwanga lyaffe. Mukama akuume mweraba.